Do do do, theme song. Do do do, I'm broke so this is my theme song. Do do do, just imagine this is an awesome theme song. Do do, theme song. Left of the box. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy. I'm back from break. Yeah, I took a week off for all those of you who were wondering, and I had a really good time doing half the things I had planned to do. But to join me on my first show back from my break is the spectacular Rayyvana. I'll bring her on in just a minute. But for those of you who want to see more content of me, I was on a podcast YouTube show called North of 48. I've linked it in the description box below. Please go check it out. I had a great conversation with a fellow Canuck about Canadian issues. So it was all Canada. Oh, Canada. That's what it is. And so hello to all the people who have already popped into the sandbox. We have MIDI Doctor, Soul Life, Cyan Doodles, Looney Tunes 9000, Brenda Knoll, Bad Lefty, Morbius Dragon. It's great to see all of you, and welcome. So, without further delay, I'll bring on Rayyvana and put her through the Left of the Box initiation. Ah, nope. There we go. I'm still learning all of this. Now you're on.
Hi. It's okay. This stuff is never intuitive. It's I still struggle with my OBS all the time.
Yeah. And please, in the chat, if for some reason you can't hear us or one is super louder than the other, let me know and I will try my best to actually remember to look. I have a really bad habit of being like, hey, everyone in the sandbox. That's what I call my chat because my name is Sandy and this is Left of the Box. And I'll ask them something. And then literally my ADHD, by the time I look back in the camera, I've already forgotten that I'm supposed to check. Because it doesn't help that there's a delay. So I know it's like, oh, well, there's
Yeah.
a delay. So I'll just start talking about something else. And then before you know it,
Right.
there's people screaming at me in the chat about something. It's like, oh, what? But welcome. It is so great to have you on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
I've been a fan of yours for a long time. And
Aw.
like, well, before I even started Rebel HQ. So it's nice to actually finally get to meet you.
Yeah, it's really nice. I was because we talked on briefly on Letterhack's show, right? But yeah, this is our first time like meeting virtual face to
Yeah.
face.
Yeah. So, like I said, there's a bit of an initiation I have for the American guests on my show. And
Okay.
that is a super easy Canadian quiz. Just
Okay.
super easy.
Oh no.
So we'll start off with something that has become a traditional question of mine because it blew my mind that this is a thing. Do you know what a toque is?
Nope. Nope. I tried to think in my head like what might that mean, but I got nothing.
Nothing?
No clue.
Uh, okay, sound is good. Just sorry, need to. Yeah, a toque is a beanie. Yeah,
Oh,
a winter toque,
I would not have guessed that. I would.
and it's spelled TOQUE.
Also, not how I expected it to be spell. What does that come from?
Um, I think it's like some sort of chef thing was actually like their chef hats used to be called a toque or something like that, and French
Okay.
Quebec, and then just
Mm.
there's three different spellings of it, but the most common one is the TOQUE, which is really fun when I send an IM into Sam, and he has no idea what that word is.
Yeah, I would feel like maybe most
Mhm.
Americans would, be stumped by that. I
Mhm.
don't feel too bad about my lack of knowledge of
Well,
toques.
the thing that I found funny though, it wasn't until I started watching other shows do a lot of coverage of Tim Pool before I even knew that you guys called it something different
Oh, yeah, Tim Pool would,
with his beanie all the time. And I'm like, what
that
the hell are they
yeah.
talking about beanie? Like I'm thinking hacky sack almost.
I was just talking about this the other day. Growing up in Chicago, the only thing I had heard tank tops be referred to as was wife beaters, and I called them that I mean, I still do
Mhm.
sometimes, but I called it that for so long, never thinking about the implications behind that. And there's another term I won't say because it's like derogatory for Italians. We would use that term and call them teas. And I was like a full adult when someone was like, you shouldn't say that. That's like an offensive term. And I was like, that's just what we call them. But I had never
Mhm.
called them tank tops. And some days I like sat and I was like, wife beater. Wait,
Yeah.
hold on.
Oh, there's a lot of phrases that you learn when you're younger and you don't think anything of it, but then as soon as you sit down for a moment, it'd be like, wait a sec, what exactly am I saying here? It's like,
Right,
oh, okay, maybe
right.
I won't say that anymore. Anyway, next question.
Okay,
Super easy.
right,
Capital of
right.
Canada.
Ooh, let me think of like all of the it's a city, right? Okay. Toronto seems like the obvious answer, so I'm not gonna guess that. Is Montreal a city or is that a province?
It's a city.
Okay, that's my guess.
No,
It's not that. Oh, right. Was it Toronto?
no,
No, I would seem like it would be too obvious.
no.
All right, what is it?
Ottawa.
Ottawa. I've heard of Ottawa.
Most people have.
I don't think I would have guessed it though.
hmm Now, this is back when I was making Rebel HQ videos. This was one of the things I'd love to do to the American audience was make a Canadian reference without them knowing what it is. And one time I'm like, um, yeah, like Ontario is a city next to Toronto or something like that. And then some people laughing. It's like, oh, ho, ha, ha. Ontario's probably nowhere near Toronto. So do you even know how many provinces we have?
I feel really bad. My partner is Canadian, actually.
Oh no.
Canadian citizen, although they didn't live there very long.
hmm
Okay. Provinces. 7, 8, 9, 12, 11. Did I guess that? 10?
10.
I jumped up and I
hmm
should have just gone up 1.
Yeah.
Damn.
10
Okay.
provinces, 3 territories.
Okay. See, I was counting those extra 3 as provinces
Yeah.
when I guessed 13.
Although PEI is barely a province. Do you even know
What
what
is that?
PEI? It's barely a province. Do you know what PEI is?
Prince Edward Island.
Yes.
Hey, I got it
You
wasn't a
got
real
one.
question, but I got that. And only because I saw a tweet about it the other day.
Or as we call it here in Canada, puh. Just waiting
Is
for
it
an American.
like really small?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Whenever there's surveys done across the country, like for the next election or anything of that sort, PEI is never included because they don't have a large enough base of people to pull from.
Okay, so tiny, tiny.
Yeah,
All right.
it's like 100,000 people in on
Oh,
an island.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, very little.
Uh, du- du- du. Other than Justin Trudeau, can you name a single Canadian politician?
Doug Ford.
There
I
you
knew
go.
that one.
Yeah. That's unfortunate that you know him.
Yeah, I wish I didn't.
No. He's yeah. A lot of my content is devoted towards him.
Yeah, I would bet.
Mhm. Now let's see, should we do one more question? Do you know what poutine is?
I do know what poutine is. It is the, fries and gravy, right? Or is that something
It's a bit more
okay. Then I've never had it,
fries,
so I'm not sure.
gravy, and
There's something else?
mhm,
I don't know what the 3rd thing is.
otherwise it'd just be fries and gravy.
Oh. Well, what's the 3rd thing?
Cheese curds.
Oh, I actually had no idea.
Yeah, well, the proper poutine is cheese curds, but sometimes they just throw cheese on. So I warn people, you can absolutely have a horrible poutine. There is
Yeah.
such a thing. Uh, Ideally, you want like fresh cut fries that are still a bit crispy with the beef gravy, hot enough to melt the cheese and burn the top of your mouth, but it's still so good you keep on eating it anyway. That's how you know it's a good poutine.
Okay. Alright. If I ever get poutine, I'll make sure it meets
Hmm.
it passes the Sandy test.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oddly enough, one of the better poutines you can get on the go around here is from New York Fries.
Hmm. A little ironic.
Yeah, go figure. So let's just check the sandbox quickly, and then we'll see about getting into like I don't know. I'm gonna do. Not all the stuff I picked out today is Canadian related. Some of it is, some of it isn't, but we'll see.
Okay.
And I'm open to talking about other things than what I have on my docket. So it's all up in the air. So let's just quickly check the sandbox. Now would be a really horrible time to find out I was muted. It's always trying to find something that uh, my dogs are goths. It's wonderful to have Raybana on.
Oh, well, thank you.
Bad Lefty is apparently a screamer.
Oh, and any
Well, I was mentioning that people would be screaming at me in the chat before.
Oh, okay.
That, yeah, but out of context, you can really,
Right.
Uh, let's see. Brenda Knoll knows it's a winter hat. So did Cyan Doodles, but they probably have already seen me do that question to everyone.
They're cheating.
Yes. Uh, okay. Nina Canadian. She hearts Chicago.
Oh, Chicago's the best city in the world, I always say. Which people often roll their eyes when I say it, but I mean it. Even though it was negative 20
Hmm.
degrees last week, I still very much love my city. And it's a balmy 37 today. So, and we're getting
Mm-hmm.
sleet. So, still though, I do love Chicago.
Balmy 37. Okay, here we'd be dead. Um,
Right, okay. Yeah, I have a good friend who I talk to every week, and she lives in, uh she's Dutch. She lives,
Mhm.
yeah. Why did I just forget the name of the Netherlands? I don't know. But so, anytime I'm like, I wanna tell her about how awful the weather is here, I'm like, "Well, quick, I gotta convert to Celsius because otherwise I'm gonna say a number, and it's gonna mean nothing to her."
Well, the thing that I find funny too about the change is that it's not a one to one. So if I
Right.
say it's negative 40 out, that's Celsius and Fahrenheit. That's where they meet.
Oh.
But like 30 degrees out, I think it's like 90 Fahrenheit around there.
Okay.
So it starts to get like a wider and wider gap.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Before we get into like the new stuff, why don't you like I know who you are, but how about to the people in my audience who might not know who you are? Why don't you let us all in on Rayyvana?
Absolutely, yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, I am Rayyvana. I host a podcast called Taking the L, which I suggest everyone check out on Apple Podcast and Spotify. I host it with my best friend. It's not about politics, so if you ever need a break and you want to listen to two people talk about all of their misfortunes and then read other people's misfortunes, and maybe find some humor in it. Check that out. I am a Rebel HQ contributor, and a fill-in host for TYT, and I host my own Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Rayyvana, but I've been really bad about streaming lately because my life has become very hectic as of late, and I haven't found much time to do it. But other than that, I also have a YouTube channel of my own. I upload infrequently. I'm not selling myself very well here, but you should still subscribe to my YouTube channel in the event that I do decide to make a video.
Yeah. I looked at your YouTube channel because I was putting some of your links in the description box below. So, um, yeah, infrequent.
Very infrequent. There was times
Been
where
a
I
while.
was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, I'll upload all the time," and then I was like, "I don't want to do
Yeah,
that."
I part of my goal after coming back from my break is like, okay, so I need to start clipping all these live streams, uploading something every day to try to get into the algorithms. And it's just such because once I'm done a live stream, all I do is like, okay, I just want nothing. Like,
Right.
just
Yeah.
go and do nothing. Um, and so then the next day I have to actually remember to do it. And it's like going through and stuff. So it's really helpful if people in the sandbox there, if in the comments section afterwards, you can put in the comments like something you think would make a good segment. You know, because there's like 5 different segments from previous live streams. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to get around to clipping that, and still haven't. But yeah, I am just coming back from my break because over the December holidays, I stayed on because so
Mhm.
many people don't, and a lot of people need community.
Yeah.
Uh, so I decided to take a late break here in January, but I'm almost thinking I need to start doing that monthly because, like I said, I got like half the things done that I wanted to do, but to show off to the audience, I showed Rayyvana right before we started streaming the drawing I did. Oops.
It is just so good. I can't get over it.
There we go. Uh, from a screen grab I took. Uh, yeah. Um, I don't know if you know Rayyvana, but he was the inspiration for me actually starting my channel.
Oh, yeah?
Hmm.
For so many people,
Yeah.
right? For so many people. I used to listen to the Majority Report when I was in undergrad every
Hmm.
day. Like, between classes, I would listen to it, or I was working full time at the end of undergrad. I just put the show on and, like, listen to it on the way home every
Hmm.
single day. And, yeah, I mean, just such a loss. Just such a
Yeah.
huge loss, such a young age, just fucking devastating,
Oh
and,
yeah.
like, but yeah, definitely a source of inspiration for so many people who wanted to get into political
Hmm.
commentary because he was so driven and knowledgeable, and just, everybody just wants to be able to, capture a little bit of the magic that
Hmm.
he provided to the space.
Yeah. With me, it was. I've told this story, but I'm always getting new people on and stuff, so I don't mind repeating the story. Uh, back a while, oh my God, it feels like a lifetime ago. I actually tried to get involved in politics here and run
Mhm.
for office. And it is something I've been working towards for over a year, well over a year. And the experience that I had with the NDP, it broke me in a way I didn't think was possible. And
Yeah.
I completely gave up. Like, just, it made me question my own sense of self and everything. Like, it was really bad what I went through with that. And almost a year went by, and I was just kind of like, I was in a very dark place because, I have issues with mental health and depression, and some of the worst side effects or symptoms of that have played out before previously. And I was just kind of waiting for another low because I didn't see any point. But it was Michael Brooks who was able to break through that noise in my head. And he got me to ask a very simple question, and that was, why am I still here? And it was like, well, yeah, like why haven't I done the thing? And the simple answer was, it's because I really like who I am. Despite
Mhm.
how horrible and shitty my life has been, I really like who I am. And part of who I am is just like this outgoing, compassionate, funny, driven person that wants to make change in the world and all this sort of stuff. All the stuff that I lost after that experience running for political office. And so that kind of just woke me up again. And it's like, okay, okay. Because the thought of living a life not being me was far worse than anything else I could contemplate. And so I'm like, okay, so now what? I'm back. I want to help make the world a better place for everyone, but how do I do that? Politics is a fail. And it's like, well, why not the same way as Michael Brooks?
Mhm.
And that's when my channel kind of came to life. Unfortunately, that happened right before he passed away.
Yeah.
So I never had the chance to actually like, reach out to him and connect with him or talk to him or thank him, let him know, you know, everything he did for me. Never got that chance, unfortunately. Um, so it is one of those things like it's hard to tell the impact you can have on other people, especially when you talk from a place of authenticity, because so many people you see online are just they present what they think other people want to see. But
Yeah.
what people really want to see is themselves. They want to see their experiences, their point of view, their perspective. And, it might not be as clickbaity, but, a lot of people really appreciated my content to Rebel HQ
Mhm.
because I was one of the few people to talk about disabilities right on there. And one of the
Yeah.
best comments I got from somebody under my videos was, somebody who lives with disabilities. And this was the first time she saw a YouTube channel other than like some sort of niche YouTube channel cover this subject, and it was the first time she felt heard.
Yeah. It
So,
can definitely be very frustrating
mhm,
being in the space when you wanna talk about serious issues,
mhm,
but all the people wanna watch is videos of Trump supporters saying stupid things, or
mhm,
Marjorie Taylor Greene embarrassed herself on the floor of Congress, and it's like, there's a place for those videos to be
mhm,
made, but it's like, I wish more people gave a shit about climate change and wanted
yeah,
to click on that video about climate change, or like, right, yeah, as a disabled person who works in disability rights advocacy, like, nobody cares about,
mhm,
the fact that the airlines are just destroying people's
mhm,
wheelchairs, and they're, not
mhm,
compensating them, or they're, systemically discriminating against disabled people.
mhm,
Like, nobody cares that, like, disabled people are in places legally paid less money
mhm,
than non-disabled. Like, no one wants to click on that video, and it's like, I don't know, maybe it's out of a place of that makes them feel uncomfortable, like, but
mhm.
imagine how it makes the people suffering feel. Like,
Yeah,
people definitely don't wanna get educated on, like,
mhm,
the harder topics to hear about, and, like, I get it, like, it's easier to watch a video that's, like, not serious than
mhm,
to have to face down the impending doom that climate change is causing us, but it does suck that so many people who would be making content like that, who would be talking about these issues, are sort of pushed into, the box where they have
mhm,
to just churn out the same sort of, like, surface level content to
mhm.
get clicks, to, even just sustain themselves if it's their career, whatever.
Yeah, like one of my biggest frustrations with my channel is the videos that tend to have performed really well are the ones where I'm talking about TYT or the Majority Report.
Yeah.
I've clipped something from there and talking about something from there, and those videos tend to do really, really well. But the primary focus of my channel is Canadian issues
Right.
and stuff. Because if there's nothing else my channel achieves, the one thing I wanted to accomplish is just to wake Canadians up to what's happening to our healthcare.
Right.
Because it is being dismantled at a monumental pace. And it's like, this is, I'm trying to save Canadians' face because, we all like to act superior to the Americans when it comes to
Right.
this. We all like to say, well, our healthcare is so much better. And like, to Americans, and it's like, we won't be able to do that forever at this
Right.
rate.
And as an American who has no health insurance right now, my
Mhm.
my contingency plan for if I get seriously injured is to either die or crowdsource money. So Canadians, you don't want to live like this. There are things in my life that I'm like, I won't do this because if I end up injured, like I work out a lot. I really into health and fitness, weightlifting, but I'm like, there are certain things I just won't do because
Mhm.
I'm like, in the off chance I injure myself, I literally cannot go see a doctor because I am not a millionaire who can just throw that kind of money around.
Well, that's the one thing that kind of blows my mind that there aren't more Americans pushing back against gun violence because it's like for all the people who survive with their
Right.
injuries and stuff and the amount of money that costs, like that would be, I would think, good incentive to eliminate gun violence. But I can't like
Right.
imagine like, the idea of getting into sports and stuff because I had a lot of friends and when I was in high school they played rugby, and so they would often end up with like a broken collarbone. But for us, it was like, whatever, because like here, as long as you get seen, the care is still pretty good. Like I've been to
Mhm.
Emerge several times, and several times it has saved my life, and I've left with no bill. The
Yeah.
problem is that those wait times, I was doing a segment where I just, oh, there was this story I heard recently of somebody who was turned away from the ER and they died. And so I Googled like wait times at ERs and deaths. And it's like, this was far more articles than I was expecting to see.
Yeah.
And that's a
Yeah.
common thing in Canada these days. Like the wait time in Ontario for some hospitals has been up to like 30 hours.
Oh my god.
And that's intentional. Like we have the operating rooms and like all the places, they're sitting empty because Doug Ford is putting the money towards the private sector and getting people into that. Whereas instead of, paying nurses and doctors to actually work in the rooms that are available to lessen the
Right.
load that way, but he's offloading it so, so much. And it's like
Yeah.
soon, if you want to like update your license or a health card or something, you're going to be doing that through Staples. Like it's just so it's like, oh, I guess while I'm standing in line, you know what? I really did need a new printer. And it is horrendous that this is happening. And so many of the emergency rooms have been closed. And so you have entire communities where it's like, okay, so just this weekend, nobody have an emergency.
Yeah. Right. And it's just devastating to see that, and especially as an American on the outside looking in, because I think the one thing Americans always complain about, right, is they'll say like, "Well, we don't have national health insurance or, subsidized health insurance, but we don't have these crazy waiting times," which is like, "Well, my waiting time to see a doctor is forever because I can't afford to go." So it's not the same thing, and Americans get really
Mhm.
self-righteous about that. But like the idea that the solution to that problem is not to better fund healthcare, that it's not to have higher pay for the nurses and the staff that keeps these institutions functioning so they better serve the public. Like we can look at any country that fully funds its health and
Mhm.
health industry and see how effective that is. And like, yeah, the wait times are going to be like a little bit longer than somewhere like the United States, but like I said, they're a little longer because more people are able to access care, and the solution to that is not invest money into, I don't know, what's a health insurance company, AbbVie, or actually, I got an email the other day from a friend from law school, and she was like, "Have you ever thought about going into representing a health insurance company because we have an opening?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't think so."
Yeah.
Thanks for thinking of
Mhm.
me, but I can't imagine
Yeah.
a job more juxtaposed to my principles than working on behalf
Yeah.
of a health insurance company.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that, but it's just like it is so frustrating sitting up here in Canada and we have the States as an example of what this healthcare is going to end up like, and there's still people are falling asleep at it. Like, I was just
Right.
recently diagnosed with osteoporosis. Yay. But like the wait to see the specialist is 4 to 6 months just to
Oh
get the
my god.
appointment.
Oh my god.
But like once I get to see the specialist, that won't cost me anything. Uh,
Right.
Depends on the medication that because they can build my bones back up and whatnot. Some of the medication will be covered because our medication is not universal. So since I'm
Mm.
on disability payments, that will cover some medications depending on what it is, but it doesn't cover all treatments that might be possible and stuff. So it's like until then, I have to be careful not to have like a violent sneeze or something because I could literally fracture my back.
Oh my God.
Because I went into the doctor with back pain, like it's been going on for 6 months, and finally got an x-ray and stuff. And it's like, oh, you have a compression fracture. Let's send you in for a bone density test. And it's like, oh, osteoporosis. Okay. At my
Oh,
age. Huh.
fun. Cool stuff.
So it is so, so frustrating that you can wait so long. And as I
Yeah.
say, like in Canada, they still do a pretty decent job of triage. So if it's something that they think you're going to die from, you get up in the queue, you know.
Yeah.
Like when my gallbladder was killing me, it only took 3 weeks to get into the surgery, and the only reason why they waited was because when I went to emerge, it was inflamed. So to do the surgery then would have to mean cutting me open, and the recovery time would be so long. But if I waited on a very strict diet, they could do it laparoscopically, and it's a day surgery.
Okay.
And so then that was done 3 weeks later. So I had to be on like a super strict diet for those 3 weeks with the instructions like, if you start feeling sick, get your ass to the hospital because you will die.
Right.
So, you know, like those types of things. And again, like we paid for parking, and we complain about the rates of parking because it's like if you're seeing someone in the hospital on a daily basis, that's going to be a bit much. Or, you know, if you have to stay at the hospital, then it's like, oh, the internet bills that they charge you and stuff are outrageous. Like that's what we get to complain about. And the thing is that we shouldn't be charged extraordinary rate. Like that's what we should be fighting against. Like we should be fighting against the the rates that they charge people for like cable or internet that are just completely exploitive and all that sort of stuff. We should be fighting to get all medication covered, like universal pharmacare and stuff like that. Instead, everything is starting to be stripped away. So we're going to spend the next 10 years, if people really start to get engaged, to fight to what we had 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And it is just so frustrating. Like mental health care is not covered under our universal health care. Uh, so
How does that how does that make
yeah.
sense?
And the thing is that a lot of Canadians don't even know this. But
Mm.
it's like, okay, for all of you who have work insurance then in Canada,
Mm.
then answer me this. If it's covered, then why and under all medical insurance for works, it has like psychiatry and therapy sessions that can get covered. So depending on the province and how much they care to fund and stuff, there's can be some programs put in, but since I'm somebody who sometimes needs to get like really big support with it,
Yeah.
it can take over a year to get into one of the very few programs that this province will have. And if you're in crisis, waiting a
Right.
year is not ideal. And although it was funny one time because I was waiting for this program where it was a group thing, a group facilitated thing, and it was for people who've made more than one attempt. I'm like, yes, I've qualified for something. And I get a call way earlier than I was expecting, and they're like, yeah, we've had somebody suddenly drop out. Are you free to start this program? And I'm like, should I ask?
Right. That's maybe a little dark of a phone call, but you
It's like,
know, if I'm in,
huh?
I'm in.
Like,
Ooh.
boom.
Right. Ooh, okay.
Um,
I hope they just had a scheduling
yeah.
conflict.
Like you might have wanted to word it a bit differently than that.
Right.
And but it's like the thing is that when I've been in crisis before where it's like, okay, people like I've been to emerge because of it, and then my friends are pushing me, it's like you need to go see somebody. And now all of the free services out there for therapy would literally reject me because they're like,
Mm.
you're in crisis, we can't help you.
Right.
Because a lot of the free therapy available are for people, you know, who need life coaching, you know, breaking up, need a new job, things of that sort, temporary.
Yeah.
But when you're in actual crisis, there's very few places that you can go to get help. But, you know, Justin Trudeau was just so nice recently, and he made a hotline across the country for people with those ideations to call anytime, French or English, which is great. But if you're not horrified yet, wait till you hear this. In March, do you know what MAID is?
Mm-mm.
Stands for Medical Assistance in Dying.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So in March, it's going to be expanded to cover people whose sole condition is mental health. So that's being expanded before proper supports and care for people with mental health issues are pushed through.
Just any mental health issue? I mean, you just suffer from anxiety and you can
We have no idea at this point how lenient they're going to be with it, but the
I knew that
idea of the you call the hotline to be like, "Oh, I'm in crisis right now. I think I want to end things." And it's like, "Well, have you considered MAID?" Because apparently that is already a thing. I've covered this plenty on my channel with because it got expanded to people who live with disabilities whose lives are, you know, so there's not a foreseeable death in their near future type thing.
Yeah,
And I'm like the principle of medical assistance in dying, I support because
right.
I do know that there are some disabilities that make life unlivable for some people, even some mental health issues or stuff. I believe that there are some that are just resistant to treatment and the quality of life for that person is unbearable. And so I
Mhm.
don't judge people for that, but the problem we have already run into is that people can't get the supports they need for their disability, so they're
Yes.
turning to MAID. Because I interviewed one guy who um, is on disability and stuff. He was about to get kicked out of his apartment and end up on the street because there's nowhere in this country where a disability check will cover rent anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
And so he applied for MAID and he was approved for it. But since he was fortunate in that his story made the news. And so there was a fundraiser for him, and then things happened at his apartment. So his landlord wasn't kicking him out for some reason now with all that attention. And
yeah,
so he didn't go through with it, but he was approved for it, even though he plainly stated he didn't want to die. But his options were to die peacefully at home or end up on the streets and have it prolonged, miserable, probably traumatic death.
yeah.
And there's already been stories of people with certain disabilities. One woman, she has a sensitivity to chemicals, any sort of chemical smoke. So she needed to live in an apartment that was chemical free. So no chemical cleaners, didn't have smokers or pot smokers, like none of that in the building. And she would have been fine. That's all she needed. But
Yeah,
after a 2 year struggle of trying to secure that housing, she applied for MAID and it was granted. Like this has already happened. And there's already been lots of other people who said, maybe their conditions were about to get worse, but they didn't want to end things so soon, but they were unable to get the in-house care that they needed or the supports that they needed, the equipment they needed. And without that, then their life was unbearable.
yeah.
And now the thought that they're doing this to people with mental health issues before it's covered under our universal health care, and then just how nonchalant a lot of the medical people are getting about this
Yeah.
with like because it's not everyone thinks oh it's so easy to apply. It's not like you don't just apply and get it. Like it's not quite like a Futurama type thing yet. Um and there's lots of stories out there that are exploitative, sensationalized and things of that sort. So it's hard to kind of get through the noise because it's like some people quite often will put up the same headline I've seen time and time again. Medical assistance in dying saves the government millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. And I've already kind of debunked that,
Yeah.
where it's like, yes, technically it does, but the vast majority of people, the vast, vast majority of people who apply for MAID and get it are people who only have a couple months left. Like they're cancer patients and things of that sort. And so when you take out those 2 months of costs for people, um, yeah, the bill's going to go down, but we're talking $100 million when how many billions do we spend on healthcare in this country per year? Like it's a drop in the bucket. It's not even like in a margin of error for rounding issues and stuff of that sort to make any difference at all overall. So to say that they're doing MAID to save money is not accurate.
Right.
And I've read the report on it. So but people like that sensationalize because, $100 million to me and you sounds like a lot of money.
Mhm.
But to a government,
Right.
that's not that much.
It's also such a sad
Mhm.
way to view, like, it as a cost-saving
Mhm.
measure. It's just and I mean, of course, I support it for individuals who, they know that they're not gonna have any quality of
Mhm.
life, because of, whatever disability it might be, cancer, disease they might have, that they know they will not be living much longer, and they want to be able to
Mhm.
die with dignity, at their time of choosing, surrounded by their family. I totally respect that, and I think that that
Mhm.
option should be, especially here in the United States where it's not.
Mhm.
We've decided that we do not support this. It should be made easier for people so that they don't have to, have their
Mhm.
their suffering, end of life suffering, prolonged. That being said, of course, the idea that we should expand it to save money, or the government should expand it to save money, is just fucking abhorrent. But it
Yeah.
reminds me of, studying torts in law school and talking about damages and assigning a dollar value to human life, which and having to like reckon with the fact that companies will make decisions based on their evaluation, that it is better for them to kill people and then pay out the lawsuit money than it would be for them to take measures to prevent death. And it is just shocking to me how
Mhm.
flippant, of course, not just corporations, but elected officials can be towards human suffering and human life. To be like, well, we're saving some money here if we enact this program, so we might as well do it because I'm not
Mhm.
viewing these people as whole humans who want to, enjoy their lives and thrive as much as they can and otherwise would be able to. Or I don't care about these people our company might kill by not making these repairs ahead of time, and the law values that
Mhm.
determination in the United States. The law literally says if it is, the cost of correcting or repairing whatever issue they have is so far outweighs the amount that they would have to pay out, it's acceptable for them to make that
Mhm.
decision. We would encourage them to make the decision to kill people
Yeah.
if it saves money. And it is just, and obviously all based in capitalism, but just a horrendous way, to structure a society. And then the way that it creates apathy in people,
Yeah.
towards their fellow humans. I mean,
Ooh.
I had even I could talk about disability rights all day. I'll just quickly say, I had one client who's a student, and he had to crawl up the stairs at his high school because they didn't have, an elevator that he could access, and he was a wheelchair user. So every day he had to fucking crawl up the stairs, while his friend carried his wheelchair, despite the fact that the building had a freight elevator, that they just wouldn't give him access to. And he testified in court about how he had to crawl up the stairs, and the judge cried listening to his testimony, and then ruled against him, and, and said that he could go to a different school that had an elevator, despite the fact that he was in this very specific engineering program at the school that he wouldn't be able to go, and get at any other school. So just like just the blatant disregard that even someone who could sit there
Mhm.
and feel that empathy and cry, and feel sorrow that this person is being forced to crawl up the fucking stairs, or people put their dirty shoes, but then just completely disregard their humanity in making that ruling. It's a fucked up world. It's a sad world.
Fortunately, we're a little bit better protected up here with our Charter of Rights and Freedoms because
Yeah.
that type of thing, no, they would legally get access to the freight elevator in that case.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just the the cultural attitude towards it now, the apathy towards it, because there was a poll that went out and like 30% of people said that poverty was an okay reason to apply for MAID. And so you get more people saying than like it becomes more accepted. And if you're somebody like me who still regularly has thoughts of ending things, and people saying, well, why don't you then? That is
Right.
literally what it's getting to. Go
Right.
to ER and it's like, okay, well, yeah, you can sit here and wait for this program that might open up, or you can die peacefully at home. It's just,
Right. Right. Like calling the hotline and then
Mhm.
being like, "Well, maybe you should."
Yeah. And again, there's still so much confusion and sensationalism through it because like some people said, oh, this vet had was recommended made instead of proper care and stuff of that sort. But the thing is that it is something that doctors are supposed to actually say like these are among your options, not saying you
Right.
should or anything of this sort. And so some doctors are just basically saying like among your options are also this, like if this is something that you want to start thinking about, that sort of thing, as opposed to like, yeah, you should probably just go with maid. Like it's just
Mm.
it's so it's so hard to try to figure out through the noise of the news which stories are accurate and stuff, because again, I've looked into it and people again will latch on to it's like the third leading cause of death in Canada, but it's like, well, the vast majority, like the average age was 79. And again, it just the average length of time is shortened for a person's life was 2 months. And these are people
Yeah.
with cancer and conditions and all that sort of stuff. And only a couple hundred people were people whose life wasn't, their death wasn't foreseeable in the near future type thing.
Yeah.
And so, but I can understand where this can go if we don't check it now.
Mhm.
Because I find it abhorrent that they would include mental health in MAID before getting us proper treatments and setups. Because I
Yeah.
would love to be diagnosed with ADHD and autism. The ADHD, I heard there's medication that you can take that could probably really help and stuff. But I can't afford to go to the specialist. And some of the wait times for some doctors that might be covered, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then then you run into the problem too, especially with therapy and stuff. Like you finally find a therapist that is covered and you've waited a year to see this person, and then it turns out that therapist is a total asshole. Then it's like, what do you
Right.
do?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
especially, if you're queer, polyamorous, like all of this sort of stuff, you can have very biased therapists saying, well, you should probably just get married or settle down, or maybe you're not queer and all this sort of stuff. Like, I did have, back when I was working, I had one therapist that was really good. And she didn't necessarily understand polyamory or different pronouns and stuff like that, but she was also very curious and would ask, like, I've heard people be referred to as they, them. What does this mean? And also, when I would talk about my girlfriend and the fact that she was married and her husband also had a girlfriend, but the four of us were like, yeah, we can all go out to dinner and see a movie. It's all great and stuff. It was never like, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't be in that sort of relationship. It was always a matter of trying to figure out, like, am I getting what I need from this relationship? Do I
Yeah.
feel like it's a healthy type thing? Even though she herself didn't necessarily understand polyamory.
Right.
So it is, yeah.
Yeah.
As I say, we only have slightly better healthcare here in Canada,
Yeah. I
and
was gonna the
yeah.
only time I've ever been able to get, therapy was when they gave 7 free sessions to people in college at my school.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's different programs, different like you have to search, but like if you're queer, then there's sometimes programs that will give you a certain amount of sessions for free through the centers and stuff of that sort. It's but to try to find like a regular therapist that is capable of handling all this, because when I saw my therapist, the last time I had a therapist, that was before I actually realized things like autism.
yeah.
And a lot of regular therapy is not conducive if you have autism. Like it doesn't work well. And so there are reasons why in the end it always failed with me because it just wasn't compatible with who I am. All it would really do is just teach me that I should be masking more and that
Yeah.
if I'm masking properly, then I'll be happy. So, yeah, that was quite the rants that we went there. uh, Let's see. How about we check the sandbox, see what some comments are, and then I was thinking I saw some news that Chaya Rychek.
Oh my god,
Yeah,
yes.
we'll get to that.
Yes.
Okay, so let's check the sandbox, see what people are chatting about. Scroll up. Kelly Bach, glad to have Sandy back on. Well, it's glad to have you guys back in the audience in the sandbox playing around. Bad Lefty just has in all caps while he's screaming. He, I don't know. I don't know if Bad Lefty is a he. Horrendous. So I don't even know what that's probably stuff to do with Maid.
No, Bad Lefty, now you're on my shit list because you said that as far as guests go on Power Report, that Bam is above me, and I'm gonna
Oh.
remember that. I'm gonna remember that and hold it against you.
It's been a while
I'm
since
just
I've
kidding. I
done
love
that
Bam.
though. Nope. I've been having crazy conversations with my Canadian partner about me making appointments in Washington State. He's so confused, lol. Yeah. Like that's it can take a while to see my family doctor, and I'm fortunate enough to have a family doctor. If you don't, then you have to go to walk-in clinics, which sometimes even now require an appointment, or you go to Emerge. Um,
Mhm.
but it's usually when I make an appointment for my doctor, it's 2 to 3 weeks.
Mm.
Uh, so, you know, if it's an emergency, they sometimes have after-hour clinic times that you can go see a different doctor and stuff. But again, it's fortunate that we still have the ability to just call in, get the appointment. It doesn't cost us anything.
Yeah.
Uh, let's see. Oh, and then I scroll, and then suddenly it bounces down to the bottom for some reason. It's really annoying when I do this. Somebody saying Brenda Knoll, freight elevators might not be certified to carry passengers. It would be illegal to allow a person to ride in it.
That was not the issue that the attorney. I
Mm-hmm.
understand that argument. That was
Mm-hmm.
not the argument that the school presented, nor
Mm-hmm.
was it the argument that the judge made in her ruling. But I would be sympathetic to that if
Yeah.
that was their
If there was like a
position.
legal reason why people couldn't just be
Right.
passengers in it. Yeah.
Right.
Uh, my dogs are goth. Okay, what therapist is that out of touch? Just fucking crazy. Did you go to the nunnery? I think they might be replying to somebody else in the chat with that. Because I've had some therapists where I'm sitting there like, and you get paid money for this? Wow. Like at this point, I've been through so much therapy. I'm pretty much a therapist by osmosis. It's like, sit down, tell me your problems, and I can tell you to go through all these different steps and stuff. And it's like, that's part of the reason why I don't actually care to do much in the way of therapy anymore because I already know all of it. And it comes down to the underlying causes of what's causing the mental health issues, and that's societal. Like, unless people can make it so I don't have to worry about housing or groceries, and like, there's so many fundamental um, supports that I need that without that, it's almost weird if you're not, depressed. Da, 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 da. Let's see. So many people in the sandbox just playing around, and it's like, are you even paying attention to what? No, it's just I love that they're having conversations with each other. It's just it makes it really hard for me to figure out, okay, what is something that I can actually say? Hey, Dino Rancher. Hey, all, glad to see you. Glad to see you too. See, that's something I can say. Uh, okay. Dino Rancher again. I'm on Social Security disability. I'm lucky to have the only universal health care in the USA. Hmm.
Yep. SSDI is also not
Hmm.
very easy to qualify for. They make it like damn near impossible.
Mhm. Yeah,
Not
and
of
like the thing that always boggles my mind too is so many people are it's like, you know, the struggle it takes to get onto disability and what it pays off, and then people complain, "Oh, everyone's just applying for disability because they don't want to work," and nah. It's like, no, if you had to jump through the hoops that it takes to actually get onto disability, just then to land in dire poverty.
Right, right. If you had to keep your income that low to
Yeah.
qualify for disability, you would not be thinking that anyone is doing this because they're lazy and they don't wanna like,
Mhm.
any minimum wage job is probably gonna give you more money
Mhm.
than disability.
Yeah.
It's not nor no one's rolling around after they cash out their disability check.
It's like I have had to do fundraisers to help with my cat vet bills. Like it's just
Yeah.
but it's amazing how much people don't know. Like they just hear stories of like, oh yeah, people living at large off of disability and stuff. Like when I had to move, I was forced to move. I didn't want to. And some of my expenses were going up. Like I was fortunate that I could keep my rental contract, but things like hydro and stuff were now extra. And my mom's like, "Oh, well, you just have to get disability to up your rate." I'm like, it doesn't, no, it doesn't, mm-mm. I'm already at the max.
Yeah. It's not really
And it doesn't work like that. And I've been on disability almost my entire adult life, and my mom didn't even know that.
yeah.
And it is, people don't understand the quality of life you end up if this is what you have to rely on. And people don't understand how much worse it can get. Because
Yeah.
then, if you move in with somebody that you're in a relationship with, then your disability will get cut back. For me, the biggest kick in the teeth with it always is if you end up unhoused, the housing allowance part of your disability gets taken away, which is only like $500 because, of course, you can find somewhere to live for
Right.
$500. Um,
Reasonable amount of money for
yeah. So then your check is almost cut in half. Well, we got a 5% raise finally. So we get about 1,300 a month. But it's like, okay, so now you're on the streets receiving that tiny amount and you're supposed to save for first and last. How?
Yeah,
For
exactly.
for a room, probably a shared room at this point.
Right, right. Or, like, trying to get into right, we have, like, Section 8 here, government-run housing programs, and obviously, disabled people on disability benefits qualify for those programs here in the United States, but the wait lists aren't even open there
Mm,
so long for our programs in Chicago, and,
mhm,
like, trying to explain that to people on the phone who are like, this wasn't my job, but people would call in and ask if I could help them do this. And I just have to tell them, like, and they're facing homelessness. And I have to say, I am so sorry. I can't get you on that list. It's closed. And it might not, it's been years. I have no idea when it's going to open back up. These are people, in dire situations. And it's just fucking horrible.
yeah,
I, like, laugh because it's so awful. Just
yeah.
can't even, like, fathom and everyone's always like, "Oh, these are such easy these housing programs are so easy to get into." Like,
Well, that's like
no, they're nearly impossible.
that's again like people think that on disability we get subsidized housing, and it's like, no, there is social housing, but it's literally a 15 to 20-year wait
Yeah,
to get it. And then you have to take the first option that comes your way, regardless of where it is, what the condition is,
right.
what amenities it may have,
It
all of
could be
that sort of stuff.
totally inaccessible
Yeah,
to a disabled
but you
person,
have to
and they're
take it or
forced to
you get
take
put at
it.
the bottom of the list.
Yeah,
And again, it's just housing is another major issue up here in Canada. It's actually one of the few areas where I'm pretty sure we're worse than you guys. Um, if you can imagine that.
yeah,
But like they love to brag about all these new developments and all these new houses, but it's like none of them are affordable. Like none of
yeah.
it is socialized housing, none of it is affordable. But then you'll hear like even Justin Trudeau say, "Oh, 30% of this is affordable housing." But the technical term for affordable housing is 80% of market rate. 80% of market rate is not affordable. But that's what they mean when the government when you hear the government say this is affordable housing, that's what they mean.
That's ridiculous. Absolutely absurd standard.
Anyway, let's get to some infuriating news with Chaya Raichek. We'll
Yeah.
be right back. We are now live again. Let's get rid of studio mode. And I need to fix this when it's on the bigger screen. You see, this is a little behind the scenes for people. In OBS, which is what I'm streaming from, you can go into studio mode so you can set up the next scene before you actually go live. Unfortunately, it is like teeny tiny in the corner, and so it's
Yeah.
really hard to see. And so
Right.
I have to wait till I'm out of studio mode and can make it a bit bigger so that I can actually see what I'm doing. And I'm a little OCD with like lining things up. Oh, no. And then if you click on the wrong thing, then you suddenly start moving something you're not wanting to move. And
Yep.
okay, I think that looks okay. And I'm pretty sure audio and stuff is still on, so we're good. We're good. So, Rayyvana, you're just going to have to yell at me if I'm talking about a web tab you're not seeing, and people in the chat will have to scream at me if I'm talking about things you can't see. It's like it's so hard to do this all while you're live streaming to remember. It's like I have to click this screen, that screen, this, and
Yeah.
I need like a producer. That's what I need. Anyway, on to the interesting news of the day. The inflammatory right-wing activist behind the libs of TikTok has been appointed for a key position at the Oklahoma Department of Education.
Phenomenal.
Uh,
Phenomenal.
let's go to the HuffPost piece here. So, top GOP school official appoints woman behind libs of TikTok to key position. Yeah, Chaya Rychek runs Libs of TikTok, a popular account on X, formerly Twitter. They're still always having to do that, formerly Twitter.
Yep,
Just,
that's the current style guidelines
mhm.
because of course the name that Elon Musk changed it to doesn't have any sort of brand recognition because he's a genius businessman.
Oh, yes. Where she posts videos about LGBTQ plus educators, often smearing them as groomers or indoctrinators. Oh, Rayyvana, did you know here in Canada we actually get protections? You can't harass individuals and calling them a groomer. It's actually
Right.
illegal. We
It
have
should be.
language laws.
I actually love I think so many Americans have a hard time wrapping their minds around that, but,
Mhm,
like, I follow a lot of international news, but I'm also a big soccer fan, and, there's been a lot of instances where coaches were arrested and sent to jail for using, like, racial slurs
mhm,
against their players, and that's something that I think a lot of people in the United States, it's like, that couldn't happen here. I mean,
mhm.
it legally couldn't happen here, despite the fact that it should.
Yeah.
I think that it's
No.
something I would love to put into practice here,
Mhm,
to get those protections for people. I would love for the term, groomer when weaponized against, an
mhm,
LGBTQ plus individual, when it obviously is being used as a slur, that,
mhm,
that people could be protected from that these people wouldn't be acting with impunity, levying that accusation. Just
mhm.
the amount of times I've been called a groomer in the past several years,
Yeah,
it's
like
exhausting.
it's not as simple as somebody in my comment section calling me a groomer. But like the example that went to the courts recently was an online personality targeting a story time drag queen hour type thing and calling them
Mhm.
groomers and stuff and bringing negative attention to them and like all this sort of stuff that was actually putting
Right.
them in danger. and stuff. So they're allowed to sue this guy for calling them a groomer because it is just the connotation behind it, what you're trying to say, and it's not in the public interest.
Right.
So if there's a politician, I can say things about them because it might be in the public interest to talk about this person for this reason or whatever. As long as I don't go and make like accusations that are totally unfounded and stuff, and like it's okay to be okay, like careful with your language, because it is sometimes as simple as saying in my opinion.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a kitty cat.
Oh.
Are you coming up, Lanier? Are you going to come up? Are you going to come up? Are you going to come up? He's going to come up.
Hooray! An orange cat.
This is
Wow.
Lanier.
Oh my goodness, what a cutie.
I just adopted him last August.
Hi, baby cat. Look at you. Is he
Mhm.
dumb? Does he have that orange cat quality?
A little, yeah. He'll sit there
Little.
with his tongue sticking out.
I love when they do
Oh,
that.
he's
I
so
love when they
cool.
do that.
He's a brat, though. Well, he's
Oh,
still a
okay.
baby. He's under a year still. So,
Oh, okay, little
uh,
guy.
yeah, he's just a baby. But him and his brother. So I got them from two different rescues, and they're 2
Mhm.
months apart. But and then I have my old guy who's about 16 now, that I've need the
Okay.
help with like the vet bills and stuff. Um,
Mhm.
But they have, like, chewed through cords on so many things, like, at one point, I'm like, "I'm losing my mind," because it feels like I'm being passively aggressively t attacked every day with things that are going missing or things that get broken and
Yeah.
stuff that I'm just like, but knock on wood, they've sort of settled down a little bit, but they're still every now and then, they just go wild. Because his brother is a Bengal mix, which I did not know when I adopted him.
Mm, okay, that'll do it.
Yeah, I just thought he was a really pretty tabby.
My cat is just a jerk. I
Uh,
call her my little terrorist.
mhm,
She is so mean, and I
mhm.
love her so much. She makes my life better every day, but she's a
Well,
bitch.
this orange guy loves to like snuggle, like curl up in
Yeah.
the lap and stuff, and so you can be mad at him, but then he just looks up at you with his beautiful eyes and
Mhm.
snuggles into you, and it's like, I want to be mad at you. And then he
Right.
also, you didn't quite see it, but he has like this little white goatee thingy going on right there that I constantly tug on. And he hates it. But every time I see it, I'm just, you're so cute. Anyway, back to the horrible news. Yeah. So Walters claimed that Rychek, who lives in California, finally, she's
I
where?
love that
Where?
they included that. I love that
Hmm.
they included that little line.
So let's see. So she's the top school official. Oklahoma has appointed. So Oklahoma has appointed somebody who lives in California is a valuable asset to Oklahoma schools because she knows all about Oklahoma. Chaya is
Right.
on the front lines showing the world exactly what the radical left is all about, lowering standards, porn in schools, and pushing woke indoctrination on our kids. Walters, the state superintendent of schools, said in a press release Tuesday, because of her work, families across the country know just what is going on in schools around the country.
That is one way. That is one way that you could represent what she does. This woman who,
Mm-hmm.
she was educated in a cult that doesn't value educated women. I don't think that she has any advanced degree. Not that everybody needs one, but maybe the person in this position should have a background in library
Mm-hmm.
science or working in a library at all.
Does she
May
even
even as a page.
Does she even have children?
No, no. She's unmarried. She has no children. And yeah, just I think she's like my age too. She's not like I'm sorry, this woman is just not in any universe qualified for this job, but of course that would be why she would get it in Oklahoma, a state that currently has a huge teacher crisis, a
Mhm.
huge school staffing crisis, a substitute crisis. People have been trying to raise awareness of instead of like doing anything in the way of solving those issues. Let's put a woman who doesn't live here and will never be here
Yeah.
on our an important position in our Department of Education.
Yeah, it is just ridiculous that it's more like a publicity stunt that they're doing this than anything else. Because yeah, her unique perspective is invaluable as part of the plan to make Oklahoma schools safer for kids and friendly to parents. But we all know this type of thing does not make things safer for kids. It's the
Right.
exact opposite, if anything else. Uh,
Exactly. I mean, have some Oklahoma schools that just this year alone, because of things that she reported on, were closed for weeks because of constant bomb threats. Her
yeah.
coverage of your misrepresentation of what was happening specifically in Oklahoma schools
Mhm.
caused those students to be without any sort of education for weeks.
Yeah. So Tulsa School District bombarded with bomb threats after right-wing influencer post, and this was back in August of 2023. Yeah, so Oklahoma named terrorist Chai Raitek to their library media advisory board after she incited weeks-long bomb threat campaign against school library there.
That's
It's
great.
just,
That's
yeah.
great. Give that woman a position of authority.
That's
And
exactly, you know what? I want a job somewhere, so I'm going to unleash bomb threats.
yeah, right. That's my
That's
I'm not
that's
gonna
not
submit
the
my
way that I
cover
apply
letter.
for jobs.
No cover letter, no resume,
Just
no
bomb
CV,
threats.
just bomb threat.
Everyone go and bomb this place. I really want to work there.
Right.
I'm like this is the thing. I don't even want to joke about like there's a place I would love to work at. I don't even want to joke about it. Like the specific place, like haha, yeah, joke that bomb threats to get me the job, but I won't even name the place that I actually want to work at because it's like it's ridiculous that
Yeah.
anyone could do that. Um The war on books is part of the right's larger fight against public schools. Its effort to keep libraries from providing books to children and students featuring LGBTQ plus themes and progressive concepts. Like, people, like, I'm so worried about your election coming up with Project 2024 because this has an impact up here.
Yeah.
Because we've had provinces now um, make rulings because they control education and stuff, saying that teachers must misgender students if their students are unable to get parental consent. Even
Mhm.
though that goes against our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and some of the provinces have been sued for it. In Saskatchewan, the premier there, who is responsible for the death of somebody in a car accident a long, long time ago, and has never really taken full accountability for it. Um, he actually ended up passing the notwithstanding clause to go against this. So basically, the province was sued because
Mhm.
this is goes against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. But there's this funny little thing that we have called the notwithstanding clause that allows the province to say, yeah, I understand we're doing this and it's against your rights as a Canadian, but we don't care.
Oh,
And it
cool.
overrules it.
Awesome.
Uh-huh. For like it's like an overruling of like 5 years or something, like a set amount of time or whatever. And it's like to and the thing is that this is only ever brought out for things like we want to end this strike, even though we know the government passing legislation to end this strike is unconstitutional for us. We're going to do it
Mhm.
anyway. And then when they get pushback, nope, notwithstanding clause, you plebs get back to work. Like it's just and then the other one is like, no, no, we want children to be in dangerous situations. Because I've gone over it plenty of times on my channel. You can look for the videos on it. It does make this more dangerous for children because it's like, if they're
Yeah.
not telling their parents at home, there's a reason.
Mhm. Yep.
Let's see. So, yeah, and then there was this other Twitter account, Matt, just saying, mind you, she's from New York and lives in California.
Uniquely qualified for the position.
Yeah. Oklahoma's culture war obsessed superintendent has appointed professional harasser. That's quite the job title. Chaya Rychak of the accounts of Libs at TikTok's his State Department of Education Media Advisory Committee. Like it just did she even apply for like it's just how did this even happen?
Right. I mean, and it's so disappointing. Like, again, Oklahoma is a state that has an education
Mm,
crisis. It has, amongst the states, a very poor rate of literacy. It has a very poor uh, education system in general, and to see these individuals get in these positions of power, and then instead of addressing the root causes of these issues and the underfunding of their school districts, to try to make headlines by appointing fucking libs of TikTok to their like library commission.
And yet it's the people who, speak out against the atrocities in Palestine and, other people that say you're not allowed to call people groomers and stuff. They're the ones that end up losing their jobs,
Yeah,
who can't
right.
get jobs then.
Hmm.
Because, like,
Yeah,
with all of my political commentary, the reality of me getting a normal job again,
yeah.
it's not happening. But to think that somebody like her, after, like, there's just been case after case of, like, places having to be shut down, people's lives put in danger, individuals specifically lied about and targeted, and yet she gets rewarded with a job.
It's just astounding. Like, people literally have written, I mean, there's a couple articles about what happens after you, and Media Matters has done a really good job at covering, the ramifications of her supposed reporting. And she always says, "I'm
Mhm.
I'm just posting them back at them with no commentary," but she will remove any sort of context to a video and then call that person a groomer and give the name of the school they work at and their full name, and sometimes their address, so that that person has to not just lose their job and be the victim of a harassment campaign, but move,
Mhm.
relocate houses.
Yeah. No, it's just like the amount of celebrity she's getting for being such an unspectacular person. Like she is just so on herself. Like if she just had to go by merit and stuff, she is so uninteresting, uncharismatic, not the brightest. Like she's a nobody and she just found this niche that gives her all of this attention, all of this fame, and it's the right rewarding, the horrible people. Ugh. Sorry, I have a cat that is on my lap, and I'm having to adjust my legs right now because he's not as tiny as he used to be. Um, and so a lot of this is just, again, we're going into scary times in the States. And like I said, we are safer in Canada, but we are not safe when it comes to a lot of this rhetoric. Like there was a hate attack in my city targeting people like me at a place that I used to feel safe at. Like I know people who know the victims.
Hmm.
And so we're not safe. We're safer, relative speaking. But, I'm looking at this stuff that's about to be unleashed statewide. But if Trump gets in, I don't know how there will be any real safe places in the States anymore.
No. I mean, and there's also just like the fact that we have to reckon with that so many of these state legislators are so far right wing, and the electorate of those states is also right wing.
Mhm.
It has no interest in, regardless of who the president is, they could be the most progressive person on uh that you could fathom. And I'm not saying that this should like depress people from voting. Absolutely not what I'm saying. But I
Mhm.
think people need to turn their attention to what can you do at the state level, because there is a lot of evil that these state legislators, these far right state legislators, have been pushing through. I mean, Florida is pushing through a bill to undo workers protections for minors, to make it so that students can be scheduled
Mhm.
for 12-hour shifts during the school day. And they're able to do it,
Mhm.
literally written by lobbies for, far right wing lobbies that wrote the exact language that's being passed. And same thing with these anti-trans bills. It's these,
Mhm.
interest groups, these right-wing interest groups that are writing this legislation and giving it to these state legislators, and they can pass it with ease because they have, a stranglehold on these state legislators, as opposed to, and there is a difference. I think that I get really frustrated when people say there's no difference between the Republicans and Democrats, but I live in a Democratic controlled state and we have codified abortion rights.
Mhm.
We become a sanctuary state for individuals, trans people fleeing from these anti-trans laws across the country. And of course, Illinois is a dark blue state, so it's easy for us to be able to get these protections put in place. But that is the difference. That
Yeah.
is what having even,
Mhm.
and I don't support the Democratic Party of Illinois and all of its ventures, and it's way more corporate than I would like for it to be. But I can get an abortion if I need one,
Mhm.
and my trans friends have the right to gender affirming care protected here,
Mhm.
and aside from, they don't have to worry about the government coming after them in this state. And of course, if we had a Republican president, that might change. In a Republican controlled legislator at the national level, that might change. So,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, just a roundabout way of saying there is a difference,
Yeah.
people. There's a fucking difference there.
Yeah, it gets scary for people up here to even think about traveling down to the States because we just don't know. And it's like, how far back is this going to get rolled? Because it's like on my passport and driver's license, my gender is X. So would that even be recognized at some point?
Right. Yeah.
Like, because it's not your plain old male female. And so now some of them are wanting to force people that it has to be the gender assigned at birth on all of this stuff. And it's just to have to fight this hard after we've already got so far, it's so sad.
Mhm.
Because here, Erin Reed, Erin in the Morning, go check out her Substack if you can. Utah is hastily advancing a horrific bathroom ban that could force those accused to show their birth certificate and even potentially submit to genital exams. Now it goes for the Senate for final passage. It may fully pass very soon.
These are the people that call us groomers.
Uh
The
huh.
people who want to inspect children's genitals in order to allow them to go to the bathroom.
It's like, oh, you want to play a sport and you're a kid in school? Well, drop your pants.
Right. Right.
It is just, it is so wild to me. Like, even up here, all of my trans friends have at some point not been able to go to the washroom because they didn't feel safe doing it in public. Um, or they want to go buy makeup at a makeup store. So they bring me along just because then it's not just them having to potentially confront somebody or that it helps to have that support when you go out just in case. Like everything we have fought for so much. And again, people up here in Canada, they don't realize how close we are. Like it is harder to go the way of the states up here because we do have better protections. It doesn't mean it's impossible.
Yeah.
And it does spread up here. Because like one of the myths is abortion access. Like up here in Canada, it is on the books. It is in the Charter of Rights that at any stage of pregnancy, a person can get an abortion. It's actually one of the most liberal abortion laws on the books around the world.
Mhm.
That is, if you can find a place that does
Right.
it. And if you have to travel to a different province or out of country to the States, because, there's nowhere across the country. Third term abortions don't happen here.
Yeah.
So then you would have to travel to the States. And when you do that, then suddenly our universal health care doesn't cover you. Because like if I were to travel over to Manitoba and break my arm, I could go merge, get my arm fixed and cast, everything is fine. But if I were to need an abortion and there's no clinics available here in Ontario, then I go to Manitoba. Well, then suddenly that universal health care doesn't translate.
Yeah.
Or if I have to use certain private clinics that are publicly funded, then suddenly that universal healthcare isn't so universal. And so you have to check which province you're in as to how late you can get your abortion done because there's cutoffs,
Yeah.
24 weeks or something like that in a lot of places. And again, it's if you can find a place, because sometimes an entire province will only have a couple clinics.
And it's not like it's something that you can say, all right, well, I can just wait. That's fine. It's kind of a time
Yeah,
sensitive
it
issue.
is. It's a timely thing. Or like in a lot of the northern communities too. Like people might say, well, there's birth control and condoms and stuff like that. But in northern communities, to get any sort of access to regular health care, it's very slim. Like
Yeah.
we're talking fly in communities and stuff too. In winter in particular, the cost of their goods go up so much.
I saw a TikTok about that incidentally earlier
Mm,
today.
yeah. And so it's like, do you really want to pay $50 for a condom? Like it's just,
Right.
um, but then there's nurses that want to be able to go around to these communities, like with the morning after pill type treatment, to be able to provide people with that. But then there's pushback and there's this, and it's like, oh, so basically, it's like, yeah, you can get an abortion in Canada at any stage. It's not illegal to do that. It's just you might not be able to find a place.
Yeah.
And when it comes to LGBTQ plus rights as well, we're kind of in the same category. The conservative governments will find workarounds to deny us our rights. Like it's already the federal conservative party. It's in their platform
Yeah.
already to, you know, start saying that only women assigned female at birth can play in sports for women,
Which is
women's
to me,
spaces, all that sort of stuff. Like they're talking about that already at the federal level.
it's such a misogynistic argument to make, but for me as someone who actually watches women's sports with regularity and follows a lot of, women athletes, it's so divorced from what the actual people in the sports want. I mean, let's be honest. There's a lot of gay women in women's sports who, beyond a shadow of a doubt, support the LGBTQ community. They support trans women participating in their sports on their teams. Their voices are never elevated because it's not about what the people actually want. It's not about what's, fair. It's about promoting a trans misogynist agenda and enforcing that. I mean, God, I mean, how many of these women athletes, while accepting awards, have to, say that they want trans women to be included in their sport? They want stronger protections for them, before any single one of these people who claims they're just representing the interests of women in sports like gives a single fuck about what they have to what the actual women
Mhm.
in sports have to say. Just is so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just, and trying to educate people on it too, when all they hear are like, oh, these one off stories and stuff. But it's like, since when did they care about women's sports in general?
It's the butt of I mean, that's like Matt Walsh.
Hmm.
The women's sports has been the butt of his jokes so many times, and suddenly we're supposed to believe he cares about protecting the sanctity of women's sports. These are people, who uh, have ran cover during times where a giant sexual assault scandal has. They've ran cover for the assaulter. These individuals. There's a big one here in the United States for our NWSL, or women's soccer league, so bad that a new team was created that's run entirely by women to try to insulate and protect these women from this scandal of all these male coaches and male owners who were forcing the players to have sex with them in order to get positions on the teams. And these are guys who defended
Hmm.
that and defend pay inequality in sports, and they say that no one wants to watch it because they suck, but they're also the defenders of female athletes. It makes me
Yeah.
so angry.
Ugh.
That is my number one thing right now that I'm constantly in my head, like just arguing with these people about, like, you don't even care about women's sports, you don't even watch it, you think it's a joke.
And it's like, so you're also telling me is you've never met a trans woman?
Right.
Because the trans women I know who've been on HRT for a long, long time, when it comes to like maybe matching me in an arm wrestle,
Right. Right. Yeah.
it,
Of course, and it's always like, oh, someone who has is not a trans woman, someone who's identified as a man forever, who
mhm,
weighs 400
yeah.
pounds of bulk muscle is just going to start playing women's sports. It's like, no, actually, in
Mhm,
the United States, there's not a state that would allow that. Pretty much
mhm,
every state requires at least 1, if not 2 years of HRT before they're allowed to participate. And that's how most of the leagues are as well. So that sensationalized example. Also, that person's not trans, so they're not gonna do that.
Well, Ben Shapiro ran into that problem when they made their Lady Ballers movie,
Yeah,
and he actually admitted it. Like, oh, we were going to do this where we actually had like men just dress up and go on these sports, but nobody would allow. Like, it's just
right.
you totally
Kind of
outed the
undermining
game.
the entire premise of the film they just made.
Uh, but and it's like just to move on to the next art. Like, it's astonishing to me that this is still an issue. Two people planning a wedding were turned away because of who they love. And Candace's response was to write this rancid take. She's as fully as miserable as Matt Walsh. So lesbian couple break down in tears after receiving heartbreaking email from wedding venue they fell in love with. So basically, this venue turned them down because they're gay. So, after selecting the countryside barn for their special day, the pair were devastated to receive an email from coordinators telling Ali and Jessica that their deeply held religious beliefs keeps them from celebrating anything but marriage between a man and a woman.
To be fair, I don't think that would hold up in a court of law because it wouldn't fit within the exemption that the Supreme Court just carved out, which is an
Mhm.
unfair and discriminatory exemption. But also, no one should have to go to court to get their wedding venue. No one should have to fight with battle litigation to be able to
Mhm.
be married in a venue that should be giving them service.
Mhm. Yeah, and then Candace Owens. The alphabet community are some of the most privileged, obnoxious people in our society. Nothing happened to this lesbian couple. They still managed to make themselves victims because they learned their wedding venue was operated by Christians. They're utterly loathsome. Just switch back. And as somebody points out, like, so here is Candace Owens, that's her husband.
Right.
Not too long ago, this marriage wouldn't have
Yeah.
been allowed either.
Yep. Yep. Under the same laws that protect the lesbian couple, protect you, Candace. And if
Mhm.
someone denied you service because you're black, I know for a fact that you would take umbrage with it because you successfully sued your school district, your hometown growing up for race discrimination. You would also be outraged if it happened to you because when it did, you were.
It's
It's not privileged to say that you shouldn't deny service to
mhm.
people on the basis of a protected class. Like,
Yeah, and it's just again like they try to make people who have been victimized like, oh no, you're crying because you're actually acknowledging that you were a victim. Like it's just because she's also just making it sound like, oh, they were just denied a wedding venue, so now they're acting all woe is me. And it's like, but it was the reason behind it.
right,
You know, it
right,
wasn't that they were closed for renovations. It was specifically targeting them because they're a gay couple.
right, right. It's exactly. It's literally against the law. They
Mhm.
are victims. They were the victim of a crime. Definitionally, they're victims.
Uh, But here, I came across this a little bit like lighter news in this category of Will Ferrell said he had zero knowledge about the trans community before his best friend Harper Steele came out to him. It's a chance for all of us in the cis community to be able to ask questions and also just to listen and be there as a friend. And yeah, I don't like Will Ferrell's comedy. It's an American comedy thing. You guys aren't that
It's an
funny.
acquired taste. It's not for everybody.
And it's nice to actually, because a lot of the times celebrities might support their trans friends, but do so quietly. So it's actually nice that he's out and loud and showing public support for his friend.
Yeah.
Because so too often you don't even see that. But it's also just sad to know that's for so many people, oh, well, now it's my friend.
Mhm.
So now suddenly it's like, oh, so this person that I've cared for and liked all my life, now they're going to be suddenly treated as this completely different person and horrible, but they're great. And then suddenly you can see the wheels turning that they don't understand, like, why are trans people demonized so much when they are just people?
Yeah. Right. And like if having that conversation, like Will Ferrell and his trans friend in public, maybe helps other people recognize that fact without having to have the because the trans population is really small. Odds are most people don't have a friend who's going to transition during their friendship, the course of their friendship, or they're not going to know a
Mhm.
trans person, but like having someone as visible as a celebrity like Will Ferrell have that conversation might, for some people, be the moment where they say,
Mhm.
"Oh, that makes sense. I
Mhm.
I get that." But it is sad though that that the empathy is like such a fucking forgotten art, I suppose, that
Mhm.
people can't fathom that without having to go through the personal experience that it takes that to wake people up to
Mhm.
it. It
It's
people
like,
can't just say that's a human
yeah.
being and they deserve to be treated with dignity.
Yeah, like my mom has come a long way, but the thing is that she'll still vote conservative a lot of the
Oh,
time. Even though it's like you do know that conservatives, even in this country, they want me gone. Like they want me
yeah.
gone. They want other people in my family gone. Um, but over time she learned, and but it's still like, oh, but taxes.
Right, right.
No, I don't want to be paying more in taxes, so I'm going to vote for these parties that fundamentally don't want you to exist. But I accept you.
Ugh, it is the myth of the fiscal conservative social liberal. It's
Oh.
like, well, you vote one or the other. So you don't get to split the ticket and vote only for lower taxes and also for trans rights. You got to pick.
Uh, yeah. I wanted to do a follow-up on a story that I've done before. I feel this is a fun follow-up. Uh, so this was about COVID. So there is this woman who tweeted this out after seeing her ailing father in the hospital. Canadian story. So I'm going to do my Canadian Karen voice with this. I'll take today as a small win. My dad has been in the hospital here in Kelowna for 4 days. Masks are mandatory again, so I have avoided a visit until today. Because, of course, I only love you so much as I can make other people sick.
Right.
I resolved myself to putting the mask on if it meant seeing my dad, but not without a fight. We walked in, they offered a mask. I politely declined because, I'm still Canadian. They're mandatory, they said. I don't need a mask, thanks, and I continued on my way. No one stopped me. In fact, an employee goes above and beyond to help me find my dad, as if I had the nurse's homemade food, and I had the homemade food we've prepared and asked them to refrigerate. Uh, yeah, they happily take it, and the doctor also watches. No mask, no discussion. Today I am feeling hope. Hope that even the medical staff knows how ridiculous this is, and that they are smart enough to help the sick and leave the rest of us alone and keep standing your ground. Happy New Year, heart.
That was a great voice.
So hey, my dad says, go fuck yourself to all the masks. And so that's her. Yeah, so he's dead.
Wow. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Wow. That is and he died of COVID. Hi, kitty.
Because
He
she sent
died of
this out. Yeah, you made me who I am today. a bigoted anti-vaxxer. You taught me to fight for my beliefs, to be strong and never quit. I know how proud you were of me over the past few years. I got this, Dad. You're in such a much better place now. Can't wait to see you again. Love, T, XX.
He didn't need to. He could be with you. You wouldn't have to be saying he's in a better place. He could be in the place that's here.
Well,
He could be here if
keep
you
up
were.
the anti-vaxxer, anti-masker stuff, and it might not take you too long.
Right, that's true. That's true. It's crazy. Like, I lost my dad this year,
Mhm,
and, he didn't die of COVID or anything like that, but he was
mhm.
in the hospital, in and out of the hospital for the year, before he died, and, like, the idea that I could have been the most psycho anti-masker in the world, but I actually love my dad. I'm not, obviously, but I actually love my dad, and I would gladly put a mask on to see him and protect him, and, like, the idea that she cared more about her anti-mask beliefs than her fucking father, it's so gross to me. It's you killed him. You killed your dad
It
for
just
some Twitter likes?
and I don't understand their you're in a hospital, wear a mask anyway.
Right. There are people there who are severely immunocompromised, probably your dad also. Like,
Like, not to
you
mention, do you wanna get sick while you're in the hospital with other people who are there and sick? Like, it's just
yeah.
of all the places where it makes sense to wear a mask, a hospital would be it. I just but, there's just something about the karma about this. It's like, you know what? I take this as a small win.
Killing your dad. Small W's. You gotta count those little
No,
victories.
no, because as far as I'm concerned, there's one less disease vector out there. Uh,
That's just I mean, it's funny, right? It's funny on the outside, but, like, also, it's a sad I mean, to be like that in that, anti-mask grift at this point
yeah.
at this point where they're not making you wear a mask anywhere other than the hospital, the most reasonable place on earth to wear a
Mm.
mask at, and you're still like, "Okay."
Yeah, because I'm one of the few people that still mask up whenever I go out around people and stuff. And like, I've been fortunate in that nobody has said boo to me about it, at least. I haven't had any pushback. I haven't had any people look at me weird or anything of that sort. So there's at least that. But it's just the entitlement of these people. And again, I don't understand the logic. If we're going through a pandemic and you're
Right.
not going to get the vaccine, you're not going to have the mask, and then you act like your rights are being taken away when you're giving other people deadly diseases.
I have to open my door really quick because my
Oh,
doorbell keeps ringing, but I'll be
okay.
right back.
Well, I'm still here for all you guys. Well, let's check the chat. The sandbox. I mean, it's the sandbox. Let's see. Da, 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 da. Seeing lots of pride flags. I have my pansexual and my non-binary flag up there behind me. Da, 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 da. Grand Theft Autobot. Hockey is my jam, but I don't keep up. Hockey, eh? Bad Lefty just says 100% Sandy, so I'm just going to assume that it's for everything because I don't know specifically what they're talking about.
Right. And I think that's a fair assumption to make.
uh, let's see. Soul Life, there's almost no raptors there now. B cat, the chat in general was slow AF today. I don't know what you're talking about,
I
but
think
I
they were
think
talking about the surfs chat earlier.
uh, you see, I see the Raptors, and I'm like, oh, so you're talking about basketball now, are you? See, I'm getting in on the conversation there with sports. Well, the thing that I always find funny is GTA is all trending all over the place, and every time I hear that, I'm such an Ontarian, so it's like, oh, what's happening in Toronto? Because it's the Greater Toronto Area.
Okay.
Let's see. Ah, Bad Lefty also likes the voice that I did. Oh, Dan from the internet. Sandy's Karen voice is too good. Yeah, I can pull a Karen. I keep on my, well, I've done bits with it in my other videos before. If I do like a newscaster or something like that, I'll go into the Karen voice. Uh, Brenda Knoll, I'm fully vaxxed. I'm not letting these anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers kill me with their stupidity. Yeah, no shortage of that around here with people. And I still would like to blame Americans for all the anti-vax stuff that's happening up here.
Anytime I
It's your
see a
influence.
video
Your influence.
anytime I see a video of a person, like, dancing, I, immediately am, like, afraid it's an anti-vaxxer pretending that they have the shakes from the vaccine. It is
I'm
crazy to me that there's people like, years in this pretending that they have, like,
mhm,
I don't even know what to call it, like, they
mhm.
aside from the shakes, that they just live their life like that.
I
It
was
just
so tempted to do my makeup like all over and then be like, I have the shakes because it's like you notice how all their makeup looks fine in these
Right.
videos.
No issues applying eyeliner. We're steady when the eyeliner is being applied, but as soon as the camera turns on,
Trying to see if I can show off his little goatee.
oh, he's such a cutie patootie. Oh, little bearded boy.
It's a
Oh, look
little
at him.
white
He's so
goatee.
strong. Oh, he's such a friend.
Mhm. There you go. Uh, let's see. Yeah. Oh, people are accusing me of being nosy for some reason. I don't know why. Am I being nosy? Oh. Yeah, so I have like other things I was hoping to go over, but it would take much longer than because I'm hoping to get out of here around 8 o'clock because the letter hack has John from San Antonio on later on at 8 o'clock on his channel. You know, not to put the letter hack on the spot or call him out or anything, but he has yet to actually have me on his show.
What? You
I
should call him
know.
out for that. Put him
I
on blast.
know. I know. I've called in.
It's not the same though. He needs to bring you on as a proper guest.
He was on my first live stream. I brought him on for my first live stream and he's been on my channel before. And I have yet to be on his live stream.
Oh, that's an injustice.
No, I know. Not to call him out or anything.
Yeah, not definitely not to call him out, but
Mm,
get it together.
mm. You know, he always says, "Oh, you know, he knows that he can call on me at any time and stuff." I'm like, "Okay." So,
So how about you call me at the beginning
yeah.
of your stream on StreamYards and we
Like I'm always pretty I'm pretty flexible as long as I get like 20 minutes to my makeup or something I'll be on as long as I'm home but yeah, I'm always more than happy to go on other leftist shows to try to bring attention to my little channel bring because Canadian politics not exactly clickbait, so I hope that I presented it in a fun and entertaining way because there's some shenanigans happening up here that I hope to cover on Friday on my live stream because apparently the federal court has ruled against Justin Trudeau for using the Emergencies Act and freezing people's bank accounts.
Oh, is that in relation to the trucker convoy?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a bit of a bizarre ruling where they're like, So it wasn't technically wrong for you to do it, it's just really inappropriate.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he's going to appeal and all this sort of stuff. And what it really comes down to is if the city and the province did their job, he wouldn't have had to do it in the first place.
Yeah. I just that I had some friends in Canada covering that like on the ground and just everything about it was insane.
Yeah.
It was like that people were just like having a big party on the street. So many of these conservative
Mhm.
grievances just it feels like an excuse for them to get together. Thank you, Bad Lefty, for saying bless you. It feels like an excuse for them to get together and just get drunk in public in the middle of the day. You know, like
They
yeah,
had a freaking hot tub. They had a
yeah,
portable hot tub.
yeah, right. They, like, had their beers cooling in the snow. It was nuts. It's like, this is not some righteous and it wasn't from the beginning, but
No.
it's not some righteous protest. Like, you just wanna get lit in the middle of the day and not go to work.
Yeah, like I have a very good friend who lives there, and she doesn't even live, like, right in Ottawa, like, she lives just outside of it, and she could hear the horns blasting at all times, and it's like,
Yeah,
no, they were terrorizing the city, like, this wasn't a peaceful
right.
protest by any stretch of the imagination. Like, if I'm hearing even the tiniest little whine from the water heater or something when I'm trying to sleep, I will burn my place down. Like, never mind having trucker horns going all hours of the day and night, and then to
Right.
see them do that to their kids. Like, their kids are going to have permanent hearing damage.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Just
when they're 30 and they can't hear anymore, they can thank their parents.
just like the conservative mind is an enigma to me. And something that Nina Turner always says, Senator Nina Turner, that I love is try not to get into the mind of a crazy person lest you get stuck there. And she's right. I don't want to get into the inner machinations of the conservative psyche. I don't want to be
Mhm,
stuck inside that padded room, but the 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 lack of thought behind eh, how inappropriate it is to bring it even if they were, protesting something that was just. They
mhm.
weren't. But let's just say they were. It would never be appropriate to bring a child into that environment. It's just this lack of care, lack of consideration. And obviously that
Mm,
requires a total lack of consideration
mm,
to be that loud in a residential area without even the people they pretend they care about, like veterans, can think about
mhm.
how these loud noises outside elderly people's houses might stir up certain memories that might be particularly painful for them.
Yeah,
Just don't care.
there was just so much wrong with that, and it's like the city wasn't doing their job because it's like they should have been
Yeah.
ticketing, I think some of them were parking illegally, just
Right.
saying. That some of them were taking up, maybe 2 spots. But they weren't cracking down at all because you see there was videos all over the internet of the cops supporting this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then Doug Ford went on vacation, just went up to his
Naturally.
cottage during this because why not? And so it's like, do I agree that just like should Justin Trudeau have gotten that heavy-handed? Probably not. But at the same time, he needed to end it.
Right. For once the entire eyes of the world were on Canada, there was a lot of pressure to do something and like yeah, it had to I understand like the especially, the reservation for that to be something that
Mhm,
the prime minister can do, particularly like the idea of it being applied to different types of protests that are
mhm,
for just causes that are righteous, that you don't want that power to necessarily be in that person's hands. You definitely don't want it to be used willy-nilly, but the situation was dire.
yeah.
He had to do something.
Like, I just again, over 3 weeks this went on.
Yeah.
Like, just what? Like, I don't think people actually grasp the scope of what this was, what it represented, how it was funded, what they were trying to accomplish. They For some people, they just see the kooky pictures of them, again in the hot tubs and partying it up and stuff like that, but they don't understand the gravity of everything that went behind this and how it's like, okay, well, the actual truckers, the people who are actually doing the job, they're fine with like 80% of them were vaccinated.
Yeah. Right.
They weren't the ones having a problem with this. This was like business owners and things of that sort that were, just
Yeah.
wanting to stir shit up. And
Right. And that was the whole point people were trying to make, right? These are people who own their own semis. These are
Mhm.
not people who are, the people driving for a living every single day. These are people who have the ability to take 3 weeks off work because they own their businesses. This is not a working class
No.
uprising. It's the same argument people make about like January 6th. Like I think in people will argue like that was a working class uprising. It's like these people on a Tuesday it
Mhm.
flew to Washington D.C. and this was the small business owner
Yeah.
fucking an uprising. This had nothing to do with the working class. And if you look at like the professions of the people who have been charged or in prison now for it, they're doctors. These are lawyers. These yeah, small business owners. These are not
Yeah.
like regular working people.
Ah, yeah. So on Friday I'll be going over some of the articles about that, and there's been some other housing issues in Edmonton. It's absolutely brutal what they're doing to the encampments there and the people there, and showed footage earlier in a live stream before my break of like, oh, so they're handcuffing this guy face down in the snow with his stomach exposed in -40 temperature.
Oh my god.
Like this idea of we're also polite and kind up here in Canada. And it's like, yeah, you haven't seen the cops go after unhoused people here then, have you? Because it's just as brutal as anything you would see in the States.
Mhm.
And it's just, yeah, there's so many Canadians just don't see, even regular Canadians, they don't see it, they don't hear it. I recently had a conversation with someone that I knew from a long, long time ago. He reconnected with me. We went out to coffee, and some of the things that he was saying, like about the trucking situation, about Jordan Peterson and stuff like that, I'm like, oh my God, you're the average person too, aren't you? Like, you're outside of my bubble. You think Jordan Peterson is smart? It's just, this is what I'm actually up against.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I'm sorry to hold that belief this late in the game. Jordan Peterson's daughter almost killed him. He claimed he almost died
Oh.
by drinking apple juice. Like he was crying because a thick girl was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Like,
Like you don't have Twitter then, I take it. And
yeah,
it's just the scope of things, and then everything with Doug Ford and just mentioning Jordan Peterson's daughter always reminds me of Doug Ford's daughter because, they're pretty much interchangeable for one thing. But
right.
did you ever hear about the KK cookies?
Mm-mm.
She started so she's in her 20s and she started a business called Kai Kai's Cookies. The K's were capitalized and she spelled cookie with a K.
I don't. I refuse to believe that Doug Ford's daughter didn't see that.
And
I
so it
refuse
was,
to believe
if
that.
you go on to, so it took her a while, and then she's like, this was just a nickname of mine, and I like the like the alliteration type thing. But if you go to the her website for it and stuff, you can still see way too many K's on that site because it was on the packaging and everything. And it's like, you're telling me this isn't a dog whistle, they're dog treats. And if you saw them, you'd agree because those cookies were horrendous looking.
Yeah.
But it's like, how can you, as a sitting premier, not take your daughter aside and be like, before you open your business,
Right.
this brand looks bad.
Oh, probably because it only boosts his credibility with the people who vote for him.
Well, this is again, people don't like people think, oh, Canada's not that racist. And it's like, well, just a couple elections ago, the federal Conservative Party, their slogan was secure the future.
Well, yeah, that's
I
just
remember
put
when I
question
first
words in
saw
it.
that. Like I first saw that on a lawn sign or something, and I nearly pulled over because I was laughing so much. And then I realized that no, what, this is real. Like that's really their slogan was secure the future.
Might as well have just been Heil Hitler at that point. Like,
It's just Oh,
Jesus Christ.
this country is not what people think it is. It's just no. I'll have to maybe on Twitter or something. I'll DM you a couple of the pictures of the KK cookies.
No, please do. I want to see.
Like they just look so gross too. And it's one of those things like you knew.
Right.
You knew.
Right.
You can't play innocent white girl damsel in distress with this one. Oh, anyway, letter hacks. Live stream is starting now with John from San Antonio. I think that's how he says it.
It is. It's good.
So I'll just be right back with you, Rayyvana, but I'll say a little send off to everyone. Okay. So, thank you everyone for coming back to my show after my break. I really liked my break. I might want to do this a little bit more often because I got some projects done. Like I said, I got this drawing done, which is, you know, something that meant a lot for me because I've done a couple of his portraits, but they were never for me, so I wanted one for myself. Let's see. Hit all these things. There we go. So, oh, my contacts moved to this side somehow instead of they're normally over. I'll fix that later. So, if you can, please support my content by becoming a patron. You can check out my art at SandeeLovas.com. I'm on these platforms. I also have an Amazon wish list with lots of different things on it. If you can help out, every little bit helps. Thank you, everyone in this community, for helping me to cover Frodo's vet bills. That cat just means the world to me, and to have your support in keeping him here with me, this is a great community to be a part of. You guys make this a great community. And yeah, so I'll be back Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, with more Canadian shenanigans and other stuff. Please, if you can, bug other leftist content creators to get me on their shows so I can help bring attention to my show. And I think that's all. You guys are great. See you soon. Oh, right. My normal send-off. Salut, à la prochaine. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your tomorrow is better than your today.